So welcome again everybody to the feature presentation of 1810. Today I'm going to show you the features of the web-based documents, the controlling of the validity, how you can print immediately, also some extensions in the extended configuration, and also some other functions like the new data facet, which I'm going to briefly introduce what we have implemented and how it looks like. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see now, hopefully, my Symbio. So um, for the first feature, the digital documents, we can now edit based on templates some documents. And how does it look? For example, if we go in the facet documents, we have a new sub-navigation which is called document content. And if we click on this, we have a new view now, where here in the middle you can see the defined templates, and later on I'm going to show you how you can set up these content. For example, this is really basic structure of the document. Here you can edit the cover page, you can edit some pictures in here, and also you can type in some text and edit it in the HTML editor and so on. So you can edit any text here, and then you can fill in, based on this template, the document content. For example, the description, or even, for example, if this document, which is called the marketing reference, hasn't set the organization, or you want to add some organization, you can fill in, for example, the marketing, or even add some new organization, and so you can fill the contents in this document. And as you can see, I can edit any information here. The special thing behind the digital documents is also that you can link to the existing informations in Symbio. For example, if you want to add a property, which is the link to the existing information, you select a property here, and then you can choose in the list which information you want to connect with this document. For example, if you want to have the list of in which processes it occurs, or the release history, or who is responsible for this document, everything will be implemented in this document. And if it's something updated, also the document will be updated with this information. For example, I have now added the requirements for this document. The requirements could be interview of the of the project manager, which is then added as an object. And how we can set up this templates is, as an administrator, you can define different kind of templates. You go in the admin area, and under configure we have this facet document templates, and here you can define for different views. For example, we can do it for the processes. And then in the detailed content, you can add the description for why you have implemented this document. The responsible is important, because only released templates can be used by the editors. And one of the most important thing is you have to select for which kind of facet this document is valid. In this case, we have set we take it for the processes, and it's valid for the sub-process. and further informations like the header or the footer can be added also here on the right side. One important thing is also the read-only section. If you click on read-only, this means the editor can't edit any information in this template. He can just take it as an additional manual, for example, but can't edit like I showed it in the first example. And after we have defined the rules for the document, we go in the template editor and we can now structure here the template. Important to know is that we have two different kind of structuring. One is the chapter where you can define the layout, and the other is the section. In the section you can define either if you need a text element to edit some text, pictures, etc., or the properties. The properties will can be defined by the administrator too. So for example, we want to have this cover page where we have we want to implement here in text and also a picture later on, and here on the right side we want to select the property with, for example, let's take us in which organization this is relevant. And so you can edit some further chapters and structure this with these chapters and sections. And later on, if you have implemented this and defined the document template, you go to the processes facet, and in the sub-navigation document content, you can then create here, for example, the document. Why isn't this shown now? Because I haven't released it yet. If I had released it, I could choose it, like the first example. Well, this is a really basic showcase how you can define the templates, but any company is different how they can set up this. So then I would say let's go on to the second feature, which is the controlling of the validity. Here I have three different scenarios. The first one is we have already a released process, which is also already valid, but now I want to edit a new process which will be valid in the next month or the next week, for example. Therefore, we can create a new version of this released process, and afterwards you can, like you know it, edit it again. And then we can go to the release window, and here in the validity you can now set up, for example, the date where it starts. In my case, I will say, okay, it starts in January the 1st. The mandatory fields I have also to set up, and then I release it. And if I now switch to the viewer modus, let's go back. I will get an information as a viewer that the first process which is released is now valid, but there is another process which will be valid soon, as you can see now. There's another version of this element which will be soon be valid. In this case, the viewer knows, oh, okay, there's the first, this version is now valid for me, but I can now see also the next version of this process and can already see it, but it's not valid for me now. If you go to the second example, you can define also when you want to expire the process. So For example, we have this process and it should be expired by end of this month. We can then also change the state again and fill in the mandatory fields, of course. And then we can set here for the validity start, you can let it empty, and end of validity can be the 31st of December 2018. And if we release it now, it will be then expired by the end of the month. The third example is you have a complete new process, but you want that this process will be released already but not valid now, but you want to set the validity date in 1st January, for example, and Symbio will automatically release and set it on valid on 1st of January. And it works exactly like the first example, that you can set here the mandatory fields. The start of validity is today, not today, sorry, it will be on 1st January. And you can take the default number. Oh, I've forgotten to change the state. I'm sorry. So, and here you can now change the state of released. And now if we go back to the to the viewer mode, the viewer will get an identical information as in the first example. This is called this element soon will be valid. There's no released and valid version of this element. So the viewer knows, okay, this is it's released, but it's not valid now. But I can see it just now and take my information of it. So let's go to the next feature, which is quite simple, the printing feature on any graphical layout. You have here in this toolbar this printer symbol, and you can then click on it, and there's the connection to your printer will be shown, and then you can just print it. This works in any facet. You can also go in the system facet, for example, and go in the graphic view, and then you can easily print out your system environment, for example. So let's go to the next feature, which is the extension of the extended configuration. In this case, we go back to the admin area, and we have here another configuration function, the extended configurations. And now what you can do is that you can set up a new attribute with a multi-selection for different kind of types. Let's have an example. I want to add a new single line attribute, which is called information. And for this attribute, I want that it's valid for example, the data facet, the system facet, and so on. So with this multi-selection, as you can see, you can define in which types this new configuration will occur, and so you can control this. Another extension is also that you can set this kind of information as an custom attribute. As you can remember, in released processes, in released objects, you can slightly adapt the attributes like, for example, the responsible, the validity, the organization, the filters. And if you want that this kind of this new attribute is also in this custom area for released objects, you can group it here and select edit custom attributes. And then this attribute will also be editable for released features. Another important information which is new in 18.10, but we haven't taken part in the release notes, is the graphical the graphical editor, which you can also slightly adapt. In the graphical editor, you had previously the opportunity to lay out the automatic diagrams of Symbio. As you know, Symbio had the different kind of swim lane diagrams, the normal vertical layouts, etc. And if you want that this will be shown in the graphical editor, you can tick this box again, and then the automatic layout can also be added in the graphical editor. Let's go back to the editor. I can just show you then. Here under the complete diagram, you have then the automated views of Symbio. And another thing is that you can also now link to objects. If you click on the link attribute and go with the to edit reference, you had previously here the tree list of the processes, and now you have another opportunity to also link to the connected items like the systems, like the organization, etc. In this case, we don't have any connected attributes. Last but not least, we have the new data facet. In this data facet, we are going to implement the ArchiMate method, which is not completely completely in Symbio now, but in the next releases, the complete method will be shown here. And what you can do is that you can, for example, add some relationship to your systems and also some logical relationships to, for example, persons or processes, and this will be displayed as a graphic. For example, we have here the system attributes of Symbio, and if we click on the entity relationship, the relationship between Symbio will be displayed. Since this is just a first opportunity, we will have an extended version of how you can use the data facet in the next release videos when we have completely implemented the ArchiMate method. So this were all the new features of 18.10. Thank you for your attention. If you have any question, just type in the window and I'm going to answer this. So it looks like there's no further questions. Thank you for attention and have a nice weekend.